Hello, friends. My name is Jared Edge, and I'm the Director of SharePoint Services for Spindustry. A short time ago, I spoke at the APC conference in Seattle, an amazing conference, and I did three sessions over a 2-day period. One of those sessions was on Copilot, another one was on Power Automate. And during my Copilot session, I was presented with a specific problem that EAs actually are faced with on a daily basis, and that is trying to figure out calendaring and scheduling. And if I have 40 people that or let's say 10 people that I need to put into a meeting, and two of them have to be there and the rest of them might be optional and so forth, how do I find a date on the calendar that makes sense for all of them? And this is kind of a problem that they presented as facing every single day. So they were also told, that Copilot couldn't actually do this for them. So the question they asked me, of course, would be, can Copilot do this for us? And we investigated there. We took a look at it in between sessions, and really determined that Copilot can't actually do it. And that's what they were told by Microsoft, and Microsoft was correct in that assumption. So when we took a look at it, what I suggested was maybe Copilot itself can't do it, but certainly Power Automate could. And if you try to marry those two together, what you come up with is a Copilot agent. And so I said we could probably approach it as a Copilot agent. So between my sessions, I made a call back to my team, back to the Spindustry team, and asked them to work on the solution for me. They came up with a solution in just a few hours, and that was spearheaded by Tavon, who is with me today, and I will bring him in just a second. I presented that solution at the conference the next day. It was very successful, but there was a lot of information, and there was no way that anyone was going to copy all that information off the screen or take enough screenshots of it or anything like that. So what I said I would do is put together a video so we could walk through it slowly, explain all the different pieces for you so that you guys would have more information, and then you could take that and actually build your own. Just remember, what we're presenting here is kind of the start point for all of this. You can certainly tweak it and do things different ways. So before I get started and before I jump in with Tavon, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Spindustry. Spindustry's been in business for about 30 years. We help organizations just like yours with governance, SharePoint implementation, migrations, training, mentoring, all those different types of things that you need to have a great SharePoint and Office 365 journey. Spindustry also has a marketing division, and we also do custom websites and things like that as well. So like WordPress and .NET and so forth. You can find out more about Spindustry at spindustry.com. And if you're interested in webinars, we have a lot of free webinars on our site, and that is at spindustry.com/webinars. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring Tavon in, and we're going to go ahead and start working on this specific solution.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so like you mentioned, we're going to show off a couple of different Power Automate workflows here today, and then see how those kind of tied into a Copilot agent. So just a tiny bit of background for anyone who doesn't know, Power Automate is kind of the whole automation piece in the Microsoft's environment. It touches all their different tools and systems, whether that's SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, Copilot even interacts with Power Automate. So that's how we ended up actually solving this whole scheduling problem. So what you're looking at right now on the screen is a very simple workflow that actually takes some information in from a user who clicks a button to run the flow, finds meeting times based on that information, and then creates a Teams meeting. So let me click on some of these actions so you can see a bit more of what it's doing here. I'll start with the trigger here, the manually trigger a flow. So when I click to run this Power Automate workflow, it's going to ask me for a few things because it needs a bit of help figuring out what our meeting is about and when it should be. So first off, it asks me for email addresses. This can be multiple email addresses, but it needs to understand who are you trying to schedule this meeting with. So for example, I would go ahead and put in our coworker Kelsey's email address, and then the flow would be able to figure out that she's the one I want to schedule a meeting with. It also asks us to choose a meeting date. It gives us a neat little date picker we can use to fill this in, but it needs the date that we're looking at for our meeting. It needs to know the length of the meeting in minutes and the subject that we want to use, because this flow actually goes ahead and schedules that meeting on our calendars. It doesn't just find a time and report that back to us. It does that kind of next step. If you wanted to get some more information, like something to put in, say, the meeting description or optional attendees. There are tons of ways that you can expand this flow to meet your more specific needs, but this is a good place to start with the basic information we need to pull in to find this meeting time and get something booked. So after our manual trigger here, that button we click to run the flow, we have just a couple of actions. Actions are the thing that lets Power Automate or a Copilot agent actually do something for us. So here we start out by saying find meeting times. I'll go ahead and click on this so we can see what it does. And what you can see here is this needs information from us about who are the required attendees. Are there optional attendees? What's the duration of the meeting? When does it need to start, or when can I start looking for meeting times? When should I stop looking for meeting times? Is there a minimum amount of certainty people can attend I should work with? So we just filled this in with some of that basic information that it needed coming from our trigger. Again, this is a pretty simple thing to fill in. You would just click in one of these boxes and Power Automate will help you actually fill in the right data using this cute little pop-out menu.
So at this point, Tavon, I'm just going to mention a couple of things. One, we're not trying to teach you how to do Power Automate. We're just showing you all the items that are inside of this one so that you can replicate it if you need to. If you need additional help, like I said, you can reach out to us, but you also may know someone internally who understands Power Automate. They just didn't know what you were trying to achieve, and you could show them this video and they'd be able to piece it all together for you. But I also wanted to mention that one extra thing that's sitting there is organizer optional, which I think is also a really cool thing to be able to set so that the organizer can be optional and not required inside of it when it's going to find that information. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially if you're booking on someone else's behalf. Definitely a good option to have there. All right, so what this does is it goes out and it says, Outlook, look at my calendar, look at my attendees' calendars, and find me some suggestions within this time range established by my start time and end time. Then, once it finds an option for us, we have this workflow actually tell Teams, go ahead and create a meeting for me. So it needs our calendar, the subject of the meeting, the body of the event message, and some information about the start and end time and who we're inviting. But that's really all it takes for Power Automate to solve this kind of problem, is we just tell it when do I want that meeting to be, who should be there, what is my subject, and then by building a simple workflow like this, we're able to solve that problem.
So,
Now,
Tavon,
yes.
there are a couple of questions come out of that. In this case, what if the meeting is marked as tentative? What if the meeting is marked as free or something else other than just, a meeting? Tell me a little bit more about that and dig into that, because you have a different flow that'll show us a little bit more in there.
I do. So you might have noticed if you're looking really closely up here, my flow here is called tentative OK at the end. That's because this flow, it says, I'm going to book over an existing invite if you haven't accepted it yet. For some of you, that's a good thing, but for others, you might not like accepting your meetings, or you might just want to be able to kind of not book over and step on somebody else's toes. So we made another version of this workflow that actually goes out and filters times to exclude ones where any of our required attendees would be considered tentative. So this version of the flow is much more complicated because it has to do some processing on those meeting times after it finds them. But basically, what this one says is, I'm going to go out, get those same meeting time options, process those. If I find that any of the attendees wouldn't be free at the time, I'm going to go ahead and skip that and say that's not a valid time. So it does that using a couple of these more advanced things that Power Automate can do for us, like the filter array we have right here, called filter times in this case. So here we've just got a Power Automate expression that says meeting organizer availability has to be free before we'll actually go ahead and consider that valid. Then again, we do the same process for each attendee of the meeting that we invited. At the very end of this whole process, we have it go ahead and say, okay, well, if I've found anything, if the remaining meetings is more than 0 in number, then I'll go ahead and make a Teams meeting based on the first one of those potential options that I found. And it does the exact same way, or it sets up the meeting in the exact same way the other flow did. So it takes our subject, takes our start time and end time, the required attendee emails. This one does the same thing the last flow did, like you noticed a second ago, where it says that the organizer has to be there and the organizer has to be free at the time. If, again, you didn't want to say the organizer has to be there, you could make some changes to this flow. A couple other little things that I'll mention. If I was to make this kind of a Power Automate workflow for production use or kind of live use, I would want to do a little bit of cleanup on it, do some things like try catch or error handling, maybe have it notify you if it doesn't find any sort of meeting time. But just as a kind of quick example, I think this was actually a pretty good option to solve the booking problem.
So Tavon, if you could go back to the top and we could just unfold each of these, just in case someone wants to see what we did in each one of those, and then that way they'll have it on the video and they'll be ready for it as well. So it looks
Yeah,
like we're
absolutely.
starting out the same way.
Yep, exact same trigger, same manual trigger, same fields that we're asking for. Now we have what we call initialize variable. I've renamed my actions to make it a little bit cleaner. We initialize a completely blank array of filtered times. And again, if you need help with building a flow like this, certainly feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to get something set up for you. Then for my purposes here, I have a helper variable called should add. It's just going to be true or false if I should add an event to our collection. We have that same find meeting times we saw earlier in the other flow. Again, required attendees, meeting duration, start time, end time.
So let me ask a question right here on this particular one.
Mhm.
Um, One of the questions that popped up was, what if I wanted to, let's say I have 8 people that I need to invite. 2 of them are the ones that absolutely need to be there, and I need to make sure that they can attend before I even care about the rest of the people that I'm going to invite. So I imagine that would also be much more detailed, but is that possible to do is the only question I'm asking you right now.
Yes, absolutely. It would be more detailed and a more complex flow, but we can certainly get that built as well.
Awesome. All right. And then one of the other questions that popped up was well, what if I have certain things like LMAs, right, or one-on-ones? And if it's a one-on-one, it's okay to schedule over, but if it's not, then I don't want to schedule over it, right?
Mm.
So that logic could also be added in here as well, because when it finds the meeting and brings it back, it's bringing back all the information about that meeting, including its title. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. We would have this flow go out, check the calendar. If it finds a conflict, get that meeting, and we can check the title or the attendees, or if it's in person, whatever it is that we can use to decide if we can book over it. We can check all of that in this workflow.
Awesome. Okay, I'll let you keep going.
All right, perfect. So again, we have the same find meeting times here that we saw before. If we wanted to change our is organizer optional, it's still here for us. One more thing I'll quickly mention is my start time and end time. I have these coded to just be within our kind of working hours here in Central Time Zone. If you wanted to add that as a kind of input to your flow as well and say, I only want my meeting booked between, I don't know, 1 and 3 p.m., you could even enhance it that way as well. All right, so here we filter out those times like I showed you earlier for where the organizer was tentative. Then we have a apply to each loop. It says for each time that was suggested, we then loop over each attendee. We check their availability. And if their availability is not set to free, so it's tentative or they're in some other meeting, we say should add gets set to false, which means we're not going to add this meeting time to our overall list of options. After that loop is done, we say if we should add that event, so now that we've processed all the attendees for that one event, if we decided, yep, everybody's free, we have this one's called append to array variable, where we just add the meeting time to that initial array that I showed you earlier. So basically, we're just building a whole collection of meeting times that we think are valid. And then if you're going to use something like a helper variable, like my should add, you want to reset that back to its default state before we loop on to that next time. Then I have this is a compose action. It just takes an input and gives that to you as its output. Just helps us actually select the filtered times variable here. So we just say input that filtered times variable. Here we are. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Yes, you are. Perfect. The kind of hovered value there. Here we have an expression called length variables filtered times. So we're just saying if the array has more than 0 items in it, so it has at least one thing, we can go ahead and create our Teams meeting.
Awesome. And Tavon, you've only shown us 2 flows so far, but I want to reiterate to everybody that you did this all within a few hours of me calling you and asking you for this. So that's incredible amount of work there. It's pretty cool. So that's the art of
Awesome.
the possible. So, okay, where are you going to take us now?
All right, now let's go look at a Copilot agent, because that's really the kind of goal of all of this was to say, hey, can Copilot do this for us? So for those of you who aren't familiar, there's another tool in Microsoft's wheelhouse called Copilot Studio. It allows us to make our own what are called agents, our own little branches of Copilot that can do special things for us or work in special ways. I created one of these called Spin Scheduler and gave it my favorite little icon of this cute traffic light. So this scheduler agent, its whole goal is when you open the agent to chat with it, it'll tell you, "Hello, I'm Spin Scheduler. If you have questions, go ahead and ask away." But if you ask it to schedule a meeting for you, and I say, "I want to meet with, I don't know, our coworker Randy. I want to meet with him tomorrow for 45 minutes. Can you find me a time?" It'll go out and do the exact same thing those flows did to compare our calendars and find meeting time options. Then it brings that back to Copilot, where it's then going to actually say, does this time work? If you say yes, it'll ask you for the meeting subject and schedule the meeting for you. So we're having Copilot be kind of that interface and what we talk to schedule our meeting instead of that button that we click. So it's a little bit more of that kind of user-friendly experience that we're all looking for. So I'm not going to dive too deeply into the back-end setup of Copilot agents overall, but there are a couple things that I want to show you guys in here. First off, I'm going to scroll down here to instructions. So if you're trying to replicate this agent, instructions is going to be one of those things you need to pay attention to. Instructions tells the agent what it is and what it should be doing, what it shouldn't be doing. So here I just quickly wrote a kind of base set of instructions or a base prompt where we say your role is to help a user find a time to meet with coworkers and so on and so forth. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. We also tell it things not to do, like don't mention UTC, or all times you see are going to be in Central. We tell it how to do things like figure out somebody's email address. So here, for example, Tavon Graham would be tgram at this spin SP test email address so that it has something to work with when it passes over an email to its behind the scenes workflow or its agent flow. Now I'll just scroll through these instructions so anybody out there who wants to copy this can see them on the recording here. That should be there for you. Now, the next section here, knowledge, this is another important one to kind of keep in mind. With an agent like this, where it has one specific thing it should be doing, you do not want your agent to use its general knowledge. You do not want your agent to use specific knowledge sources like SharePoint or some other website, and you do not want it to use web search. We only want to give it the ability and the tools to use exactly what we tell it to use. So our get meeting times and our create a Teams meeting. Nothing else would work with this agent. I can't ask it general questions. It can't assume knowledge it doesn't have. So that's how we kind of restrict it to only doing what we intend. Tools is the next most important part of setting up this agent. So tools actually let the AI do something, right? For years, we've had chatbots, they couldn't really act on your behalf. Tools, they kind of give it that ability for Copilot to say, oh, I can actually go out and talk to a Power Automate workflow. Or, oh, I can talk to Teams on your behalf and schedule a meeting. Or, oh, I can actually go out and send a message or send an email. So here we only really need this AI to do two things for us: find valid meeting times and create a Teams meeting. Let me go ahead and click on Tools up here so you can see a little bit more detail about the both of these. All right. So get meeting times, as you can see, this is a flow. So one of the coolest things to me that these Copilot agents can do is they can run basically a Power Automate workflow to go through that same kind of process that we showed in our Power Automate workflows, or whatever else you think you might want to automate in the world of Power Automate, which can be just about anything in the world. So it's really great that Microsoft gave us the power to run these flows. I'll show you Copilot's version of this flow here in just a second. One thing I wanted to show you, though, before I show you the actual kind of workflow, is that when we are having a Copilot agent call a tool or use a tool, we might need to give it some inputs. So here I told Copilot, you're going to need to find an email. Go ahead and dynamically fill that in with the AI. I could have set that to a standard value if I wanted to, but the email of whoever I'm trying to meet with changes every day. So I went ahead and told it to fill that in dynamically based on our conversation. Same with the meeting date. Same with the meeting length in minutes. Only once it gathers that information will Copilot be able to actually run the behind the scenes flow here and find meeting times for me. Same story with our other tool, our Create a Teams meeting. Here, it has some inputs that it needs, right? It needs to know the calendar ID that it's trying to book a meeting on. Here, I did set that to a custom value that's just calendar, but if you wanted it to fill that in dynamically, put it on different calendars on some condition, you can build that in as well. It needs a lot more information here, though. It needs the subject and the event message content, the time zone, start time, end time, right? This flow needs to know a little bit more, or this tool needs to know a little bit more than our kind of flow action did. So it has a lot more inputs. But this is just how we tell the agent what it should be using to actually go out and do some of these things on your behalf. All right, so with that said, let me go ahead and show you the actual workflow behind this Get Meeting Times tool that we made. So here you're going to find this is extremely similar to some of those other flows that we've looked at today. This time, though, instead of that manual trigger or that button we click, we trigger our workflow when an agent calls it. So when Copilot says, I need this workflow to do something for me. Here, it asks for the email that we're trying to meet with, the meeting date, and the meeting length in minutes. The reason I don't have this one excuse me. The reason I don't have this one ask for that other value that we saw before, the meeting subject, is because we have Copilot schedule the meeting, not the workflow. So here we initialize a variable called times. It's an array. So we're going to give Copilot potentially multiple meeting times. We'll give it everything we find. We do our find meeting times, and again, we set this up the exact same way we saw before with the attendee percentage, the required attendees, meeting duration, start time, end time. Then we loop over each of those meeting times that it finds. So we apply to each on meeting times. For each of those, we create an array of just the start time and the end time, so it's a little easier for Copilot to work with on the other side. And then to end off, we give that array of times back to Copilot. That's where our other tool picks up, and Copilot can try to schedule its meeting. So it says, okay, great, I found some meeting times. Let me go ahead and get the rest of the information I need to run this Create Teams meeting. So let me go ahead and get the subject. Let me go ahead and get the event message content, the other information that it might not have yet. Start time and end time, it does figure out from that kind of agent flow. So some of this information it already knows, and what it already knows it's not going to ask you about, like you might have seen in those live demos. All right, so that about covers kind of the setup of this agent. If we wanted to do things like publish it out to different channels, like make it available in Teams or make it available in a public website, we can certainly do that as well. We can add in more complicated things to this, like, inviting optional attendees like we were talking about earlier. But again, this is kind of that basic setup. And if this is enough for you or someone in your company to go out and make this yourself, awesome. Hopefully this has inspired you to make more Power Automate flows and more Copilot agents. But of course, if you need a hand with it, we are always here to help and happy to get something like this built for you as well.
Tavon, that was awesome. I appreciate you jumping on this call with me just to go through and give this information out. If anyone here needs additional help, feel free to reach out to us. We try to make all these webinars or interactions that we have with you not salesy, but in this case, a lot of you asked the question, hey, can someone help me build this? So just wanted to let you know that that is possible to do if you need us. So thank you guys. I appreciate you, and we hope to see you at a future conference as well. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone.